All right, we'll bring this Thursday, June 5th special Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you rise for invocation and pledge of allegiance. Commissioner DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's bow our heads. Our Father God, we thank and praise you, Lord. Father, we come to you seeking direction for our county. Father, we ask for direction and just cool heads, calm hearts, and just, just give us direction, Father. We've got a lot of things to do, and some of them will not be pleasant. So, Father, we lift this request up to you. We ask that you guide us in this meeting. We thank you and praise you, and we lift this all up in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Arndt. Commissioner Peak.
Here.
Commissioner Haskell.
Here.
Commissioner Pearl-Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Whitaker. Commissioner Mudry. Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Drosha.
Here.
Commissioner Toomey.
Here.
Commissioner Hanson.
Here.
Commissioner Christensen.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes.
Here.
Commissioner Barber.
Here.
Chairman Mott.
Here. Are there any agenda additions or changes?
No, sir.
Move the agenda.
The agenda been moved and supported. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, that brings us up to the first limited public comment. If there's anybody that would like to address the board, please approach the podium and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. All right, seeing none. We're going to get right into closed session. We need a motion for that, though.
I'll make the motion to enter a closed session.
Moved by Commissioner Arndt, supported by Commissioner Toomey to go into closed session. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Sheriff, do you like to stay? If we can have the room, please. My apologies.
Well, we did it.
No problem. It's been a lot to put together. If you could just include in your motion the MCL reference that's on the agenda pursuant to,
I'll make the motion to pursue a closed session pursuant to MCL 1526A 1H.
Okay, it's been amended and supported. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Arndt.
Yes.
Commissioner Peak. Yes. Commissioner Haskell. Yes. Commissioner Pearl-Wright.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitaker. Yes. Commissioner Mudry. Yes. Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Drosha. Yes. Commissioner Toomey. Yes. Commissioner Hanson. Yes. Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes. Yes. Commissioner Barber. Yes. Chairman Mott.
Yes. We are now in a closed session.
Motion to re-enter closed session. I'm kidding.
Okay, we're going to enter into discussions about the tentative agreement with Delta Township for police services contract. That's a question, Commissioner Proright.
Okay, so when I looked back over some prior staffing levels over at Delta, just a few years ago, not this last contract, it would have been the other one, the one prior. There was 33 employees listed over there. Then here just recently, it shows 35. When we went for the millage, it was shown as 35 staff.
Okay, 35 staff, there has been 33 officers, sworn officers, 2 support staff, 2 records clerks. That's what the contract has been. So it is 35 positions, but there are only 33 that would be on road.
Okay,
Yeah.
Can I actually, do you mind if I run through it for the?
No, that's great. No, go ahead.
All right, so,
Let me have the mic if I want to. I'm just
Okay.
gonna rip it out of your hand.
yeah. So I'll start off, there's a memo from the Controller's Office outlining a tentative financial framework that's being presented both here and also at Delta Township today. So as you know, a delegation of county representatives consisting of Chairperson Mott, Sheriff Reich, and members of the Controller's Office have been meeting with township officials multiple times since the public safety millage failed on May 6th. They've been focused on future police services between the county and the township since the election. Township had explored other methods of providing residents with police services, such as contracting and contracting with other municipalities or establishing their own department. There's no other entity that's got the capacity to take on contracts like this, and the ability to build a department in 3-4 months it's a heavy lift. So given the circumstances and the financial realities present for both the county and the township, members of the Eaton County delegation are recommending support for this framework. All parties have worked diligently to systematically review the needs of both the county and the township as quickly as possible to find a solution that preserves as many of the current Eaton County Sheriff's Office employees and secure police services for the residents of Delta Township. As has been reported, several sheriff deputies have already accepted other employment offers due to the uncertainty of their futures with the county. Adopting this financial framework will allow county officials and township officials the time necessary to work out final details of an agreement, but give our employees an outline of what a final agreement will look like. So the goal of this and any future police services agreement should be to provide long-term financial stability to the county. The township and the county have benefited from a 40-year relationship by taking advantage of synergy across the Eaton County Sheriff's Office. This tentative agreement includes additional command and deputy positions. That is a reflection that we will no longer have the capacity at the county to provide coverage gaps and provide assistance to communities, and that's a weight that's going to be felt not just in Delta Township, but in Eaton Rapids and in Grand Ledge and other communities that have their own police services. The tentative agreement includes a proposed framework of 10-year contract with a 3-year out option, which can be triggered by either side. The 3 years would establish enough time to come up with the transition plan for assets, equipment, and personnel if that was so the direction that was taken. The 1 year out that existed in the prior contracts just doesn't give enough time for the reality of the undertaking to have that kind of separation take place. Approximate annual cost to Delta Township is $8 million. That includes 39 positions, which is 5 additional sworn officers. It includes additions to command staff, 2 additional deputies, which will be our secondary road patrol grant that will still provide services in schools and also on secondary roads. 1 additional deputy dedicated to the violent crimes unit. Administrative fee of 15% to cover administrative costs, with 33% of that fee being dedicated to retirement liability at the county. Again, with the long-term focus, if we're able to set money aside to take the MERS contribution down, we reduce the cost for all of our fiscal years going forward. County and township will reconcile costs at the end of each year for any credits or extra costs of personnel, supplies, and equipment. That would be a vacancy position is the example of a credit, and additional overtime hours is an example of things that would have to get paid back to us for paying in the actual year. The administrative percentage will not be affected by the reconciliation, so it won't go down if for some reason there was a credit at the end of the year. And included in the deal is going to be a one-time upfront MERS contribution to help Eaton County, which the township will receive back in credits built into the plan, which is outlined on one of the documents that we provided. So the first, you've got a cover page which just shows the, yes.
I just need to correct one thing. When Ben mentioned the secondary road patrol, which is a grant we get through the state, you said in schools. It's not in schools, but they would be there for the start of school and the end of school because they deal with roads and schools are in the secondary. Okay, just want to make sure that
Thank you
it's
for
not going to
clarifying.
be in schools.
Thank you for clarifying. So the first is essentially the balance sheet. So starts with your wages and fringes. Delta pays for crossing guards, so it's taken out of the equation, but that's already built in. Then it goes through other supplies and charges, which are broken up. Capital outlay for vehicle leases. So that is the summary of total personnel, total supplies. Then we've got the secondary road patrol grants, licensed liquor revenue, and then vehicle disposal credit. These are things that have historically been a part of the contract. Then next, we've got our computation of costs based on that 7.19 figure, 7.19 million. So the total to Delta is 8.2. In this model, Delta's considering a $2 million contribution to MERS. The last page I'll show you has a breakdown of how we agreed that would work in terms of capturing it as a credit for future payments. So that credit is reflected there. So at the end of that equation, it's a $7,956,816 contract. And the monthly breakdown and annual breakdown, both for the county's portion and Delta's portion is reflected there. We made personnel commitments for part of the services of this. So we have to have a field training officer. We have to have a quartermaster. We have to have a captain to do recruitments. We have to have administrative assistant with the services captain. So those are getting dedicated a portion of this personnel to provide the hiring support and internal support for the footprint of the sheriff's office with maintaining the jail and the contract. And then 5% of that 15 or 33% of it, that is what we would put additionally to MERS every single year above and beyond the current required contributions to, again, help lower that personnel cost over a period of time. Before we move on to personnel and the retirement credits, were there any questions on that sheet?
Commissioner Prowright?
Hey, I guess I just need an explanation of the crimes victim unit 1 person, because I guess I don't know what it is, what they've been doing versus what they're going to do now, being just limited to Delta.
Well, I could probably talk to it a little bit, but I think that'd probably be a better question to the sheriff.
Because isn't that one of our positions that we're talking about here in the total?
Yeah, so I know that it works in collaboration with violent crimes unit, which is, do you mind if?
No, come on up,
It'll
Sheriff.
be a lot better coming from.
Because I know the sheriff also made a statement on a news release that we wouldn't be turning murder and things like that over to state police.
VCI unit is a multi-agency, similar to what Tri-County Metro was at one time. We had one detective involved with VCI, with the city of Lansing, 1 day a week. However, it's grown huge. We use Lansing VCI unit weekly. They solve crimes. They come over this side, I swear, I've probably sworn in probably 8 LPD officers. There's other agencies that are also involved. East Lansing's involved. They solve crimes. They do a great job. It's one of the main units that Lansing has that I really appreciate, because when we have a major crime in this county, they're there. And I want to continue that, but this time I want to use it full-time because they will be needed, they'll be used, and if I can solve a bad crime here in Eaton County, I think it's wonderful. But it's a conglomerate of other agencies. They work together. Crime has no boundaries, so it comes over Waverly Road quite often. So it's a well-deserved unit.
What does that actually cost for one deputy then? What is the total, like with benefits and pension and
Ben
everything?
would probably have that figure on the total cost of a deputy.
Okay.
Like on a per deputy basis?
Well, yeah, if we're
actually
gonna put it in the Delta contract,
That's the
in
next
Delta.
sheet, actually, so.
Oh,
if
good,
you all want
Ben.
to turn our hymnals to the next page.
Okay, thanks.
Kidding. Yeah, unless there are other questions on the first page.
Don't see any.
Oh, I do, Ben, before you move on.
Okay.
So, when deputies would get, for whatever reason, FMLA or sick or whatever, okay, and then they didn't come in. So the reason some of those extra road patrols are being added here at Delta is so that when our basic number that we've been used to have that same situation come up where they go off on, 4-day holiday or something, that makes so that we have the same stable level of funding or services by that many officers, right?
Yeah, so whereas in the past, it was possible to have someone, say, who works normally in out-county patrol, who was interested in working overtime, coming up to fill out and provide additional support to Delta. With that same framework not available, the additional staff is meant to do exactly that.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out why we popped up.
Yep.
I mean, so that I can explain it to the residents as well, because, we have people sharpen pencils and watch, do things like that are not affiliated here, but want explanation.
Yeah, and I would say for departments that are used to the sheriff's department being there to help back them up at events and at incidents and stuff like that, a lot of them are probably going to have serious discussions about adding staff in the coming months and years, because our department was a presence and is a presence, and it's unfortunate that it can't be the same presence it's been. It's an institution, and it just sucks. But it will probably hit budget seats throughout the county because someone's gonna have to step up to try to fill the void.
Well, and as Commissioner Haskell explained, we are not the only county going through this to supply what has been in the past, a sheriff's coverage and, service levels. So this is nothing new. That's why the state legislature's down there trying to figure out how to give some extra money to police protection in their state budget.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you. So then the next is a position allocation list. So as you can see, it's made up of 38 sworn officers. To answer your question, Jeannie, Officer 38 is the VCI deputy. So that was the budgeted total. And this breaks it down: regular, longevity, overtime, whether it's detective, holiday, sick leave payout. Wow. And then at the bottom, under the positions are some fringe benefits and their expenses. So all told, we estimate the personnel costs, the total cost for this contract at $6.3 million, which is reflected on the cover sheet before we go into equipment and services.
Any questions on the personnel? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Dozier.
Just for clarification, that's $6,307,726 annually.
Yeah, 307,728, yep. Subject to change if we bargain and there's a 2% cost of living adjustment or something, like, the number would go up. And then our health insurance too, which goes up on a regular basis, so those would get updated in the equation once we know what the expenses are.
Which is what we currently do every year. We calculate, send it to Delta to let them know where we're at, because we're on different budget years. It would be the same thing, so they can prep for their budget.
Commissioner Toomey.
Thank you. I was just looking at the cover page and then the Delta Sheriff personnel page. Is this is 6.3 million on that sheet and 6.28 on this one?
6.28 after you take out the crossing guards, because they pay.
Oh, the crossing guards, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
More questions on that? All right.
Go through MERS.
So the next is the MERS piece here. So Delta had expressed if there was a way for them to make a prepayment up front to help with the MERS contribution, would that be something the county was open to? Because I will say, the thing that makes it hardest to do business with us is our MERS contribution rates. So we are open to it. We have, I think, a little over $1 million of unfunded or unallocated money that's in our pension right now, which means it brings down our liability, but it's not sitting in an individual group. The discussion we had with Delta was if you're able to bring $2 million to the table or 1.5, if you're able to match, we could allocate the money that's there unallocated to the sheriff department pension groups to help bring down their unfunded liability and lower the personnel costs in the future, and Delta would either match or exceed that. This scenario is at a $2 million mark, so if Delta contributes $2 million in year one of the contract, we will give credit in the portion of 5.93%, which is the mid-range for earnings expectations that MERS has for their valuation. So you see in the earning calculation sheet, the longer one, what each year that looks like, and then we would credit the original principal balance in equal payments of $200,000 over the duration of the 10 years. So you see what that credit per year looks like as you read through there. Let me just pull up my sheet. Thank you for your patience. So then using similar modeling, so our 1 million plus the 2 million from them modeled over the duration of the contract, plus that 5% admin fee commitment to paying down the unfunded liability, I estimate with just principal contributions, it would come out to about 6.8 million that would be contributed to those pension groups over the duration of a 10-year term, with another 2.2 million in earnings. So that's a little over $9 million contribution to those groups above what we already pay in the statutory mandated required. And then through that model, we're giving credit to Delta for 2.6 for making the early deposit into that process, but we're still netting close to 6.5 million above and beyond. We've used this as an opportunity to talk with MERS, and we've scheduled to have them come to a meeting, assuming today we have the direction to move forward on the path that we're going on with Delta, and to hear options of how we might further be able to reduce our pension expenses into the future, so.
Commissioner Prowright.
Okay, Ben, I may have heard something that was incorrect, but let me just go back to at the very beginning, when you started talking about mayors here. I thought you said that they had an anticipated return of 5.3%. Yet when you go talk to them at conferences, we're already down from 8% over years, supposedly down to about 6.78% on a smoothing basis. So why is MERS throwing out 5.3% returns?
Yeah, so every year we have a valuation done by MERS that says it's a snapshot of value. These are your assets today based on how your population is, what's life expectancy. Putting all that together, that's where you determine for every dollar earned, this is how much you need to put forward to, one, pay for your current employee, and two, pay for unfunded liability from prior employees before. As part of that calculation, they always give you 3 projections. So they start with what's a low, and in our last valuation, it was 4.93% was the low. The mid was 5.93, and then the high was 6.93. So when you look at those charts, you'll always see there are 3 lines of different colors, and they're meant to signify this is how quickly you're funded to 100% if the market bears that. So we thought it fair, since we're getting a $2 million deposit, we'll run it in the mid-range to give credit for that. And then if the market ends up beating that 5.93, which it very well may, that's just more money into the pension to help pay down future personnel costs.
But you had to have something to start with for
Yes.
costing out the cost of the Delta contract.
Yep, and I think we kind of left this portion a little flexible in that if they wanted some of those credits in years 2 and 3 of the contract, rather than spaced out evenly, I mean, those are ongoing discussions. They also don't know exactly what amount they would put up front. So this is just a framework and to show you what we're talking about in theory and concept. But hopefully, the goal is by making a real commitment to this unfunded piece, it reduces your ongoing expenses every fiscal year after. And I think
Yep,
that's,
we've tried to do that before. And when we reduced everybody to a 2.0, I mean, all that affected the cost of operations. So I understand that, and I appreciate your explanation.
absolutely.
Commissioner Drosha.
So, Ben, then by taking this tack, we won't be extending our contract with MERS beyond that 2038 close date, is that correct?
So not necessarily, but we may have the option. So some of the stuff we've done with MERS on our end is talking to different communities that are struggling with unfunded liabilities. And we're not the only one. We've had discussions with Eaton County communities as well, is the idea of getting the ability to add 5 years to the end of our period. Because like you're saying, it was originally 2038, and I think they've moved it to 2040 because MERS has the ability to add for really bad years and stuff. Prior to this, we had a projection from them where they said there were certain pension groups they'd allow us to add 5 years to. But then we came into these straits here, and now they're like, well, if you're laying off so many people, that may not be a viable option. But for the union groups that they said we could increase and add 5 years to that duration, it potentially was gonna save about $500,000 a year. But then we weren't able to move on it in time because of everything that happened. So some of the discussions we're having with MERS is that back on the table for the other groups? And if we make a large investment up front, would we be able to put some of the sheriff department groups available for that as well? That adding of 5 years would reduce the proportion we have to pay significantly, and I think it's a good path forward, but we're just in the beginning steps of evaluating it.
Commissioner Haskell. I'm sorry, were you done?
I'm done, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, obviously, this is all part of ongoing conversations with Delta Township, but would other municipalities, if they were to approach Eaton County, would they be expected to have a similar type of pay it forward?
Well, not with the pension.
I think if they're interested, I mean.
pension side of it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody
Specifically to
would.
this MERS plan.
Well, you could offer that as far as the relationship with Delta is different because it's a large number of officers. You're also dealing with a large number of officers who are getting ready to retire. So those costs ended up being associated with county and Delta, right? So to put that necessarily on another community doesn't really make sense because I don't want to say the problem, but realistically, the liability did not occur with them. Right? So this is why the agreement with Delta is there, because they've been our partner. They've been contributing to a contract. They know the struggle that we've had with MERS because we've been in partnership with that.
So it's an option, but not necessarily a requirement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that following the rest of it when we get to that point would be exactly the framework that we would use because we're not going to change the scope of that
Understood.
for another community.
And I don't know where other communities are at, but if they have the ability, I mean, yeah. I mean, Delta's the one that asked if that would be a consideration, so, yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
By offering this contract, and we agree to it, do you have a number that there would be a decrease? Because just what you said of the decrease in amount of people paying into the pension?
I could give you, and I don't have a.
Does that make sense what I
It
just said?
definitely does. I think what you're asking is by securing an agreement for 40 employees, what would that do in terms of the number of cuts? It would have to be found elsewhere, right?
Right, because then they would stop also paying in towards
So
the
we
pension.
had, yeah, we had, it's the 3 million.
It is,
The
so
3.6 million, so kind of.
We had estimated, and I pulled it up, so on March 28th, we had a proposed eliminations, and it broke out between public safety and administrative services. And in that estimate, we estimated if the cuts with the prosecutor, the sheriff's department, animal control, that would trigger about 3.6 million more in unfunded liabilities. If you're adding back in the 40 positions, I mean, you could look at that as probably 1.8 million put back into play. Plus, you now have this contract that's being paid at 100%. So before, when we did the model, it showed the expense and the revenue minus the SEV credit. So it does put more money back into the discussion for you all, that we'll try to have those numbers ready by ways and definitely by the June 27th. But it significantly changes the dynamic of what you all have had to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Christensen.
About Delta and Eaton County, but a little off topic financial wise, just so that we're very transparent to the constituents out there. The 4 charter townships, as we know, are required to have coverage, so the other 3 charters would have to come to the county individually and talk and negotiate about that. And then Delta's jurisdiction, will they be mutual aiding to LPD still if needed? They get a call in Vermontville, will they be able to assist if it's something extreme that needs to be handled?
So the sheriff is here and can answer questions like that, but I will say nothing is going to change. An officer is an officer is an officer. If there's a situation, they are going to go. It's human nature for one, it's responsibility as well. So I don't know, Sheriff, if you want to talk to that a little bit, but that's something that Delta is aware of. I want to be clear. Delta knows that that can happen, and there wasn't an
Before
argument.
he answers that really quick, I know I had asked during closed session about a percentage, and I didn't actually get a physical percentage, which is fine. But I just want the public to know that Delta is funding this 100%. The county has stated they don't have the money. They can't do that.
That is correct, and it's not just, can I have the sheriff answer something, and then I kind of want to just give a little update as to how we got here. So Sheriff, you answer them each, okay.
Sure can. Very good question, Commissioner. In regards to handling calls outside, we won't be handling normal calls outside the township. However, if there's an officer in Charlotte that needs assistance immediately, getting in a fight or whatever, they got a homicide going on, they got school violence going on, I would expect my deputies from Delta to respond. That's just what we do. I can't stop that. Maple Valley's the same way. If there's school violence, we're going to respond. Because state police now are going to be responding. They're probably going to beat us there, maybe. I have no idea, depending on how many troopers they have on. But we will respond to certain extreme violent calls for the people in Eaton County. But a majority of our help, or a majority of our work is going to be in Delta Township. That's who we're paying us. That's who we're going to be working for.
And I think I wanted to answer, I think you had asked the question about the other charter townships, and so individually, yes, and I think Commissioner Drosha's brought this up before, but charter townships can also do, I believe they can do like a public safety district where they can pull together and actually, and so a lot of locals will do that for their fire departments and such. So that is an option that's available for charter townships to explore, but not speaking for Commissioner, but I think if a charter township wanted to open discussions with us similar to what we've done with Delta, I mean, we'd be open to it. Now would be the time to probably take that leadership stance for your community, because we have sheriff's department employees that want to know what's in store for them. And so I would just put the call out there. Absolutely, they should start now.
Commissioner Pearl then Commissioner Toomey.
Okay, so the sheriff just had a seat, and I had a question for him. Okay, so I understand if there's school shooting violence or something going on with a fight over someplace where they need assistance. I completely understand that. However, from somebody who hits car deers and started that about 20 years ago, you wouldn't be responding to those situations or vandalism in barns or things like that, or somebody comes home and, they see some stuff missing. You wouldn't be doing
No
those.
car
Those aren't
deers,
emergencies.
no vandalisms.
No vandalism.
Those are not emergencies.
Okay, that's what I'm asking, because I didn't know what your idea was. Like I said, I've hit 5 deer.
Okay.
So I just want to check it out.
One thing I did want to just say in terms of cost, this is still work to be done on the negotiation. So one of the pieces is expenses will likely be capped to not increase more than 5%. But at the end of the year, if there's an overage for that amount, that would be paid as a one-time contribution to the pension. That's, the language and stuff's not yet finalized. That's why we're here presenting a financial framework, so you kind of see the box that we're working in. And it gives us a couple weeks to hash out exactly what an actual contract looks like. So a vote today just gives us the direction to continue moving forward so that we can bring back a finalized agreement for your consideration at a future date.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, we're not finalizing anything today. We're just a vote to go ahead with the drafting. Commissioner Toomey, you had a question?
Yeah, so as far as the other communities go, whether Windsor or Oneida or anybody else wants to contract with the county, this would be used as a general framework besides the retirement upfront payment to negotiate those deals with everybody else.
That is correct.
Okay.
And currently, right now, the only contract that we have that's similar to Delta's is Windsor's. And those contracts mirror each other right now. So we would do the same thing with Windsor. We're not going to veer from that because it's community to community. We're going to keep it the same.
And then I have just one follow-up question on this. So the current framework does not include animal control. Is that something that's just been, we already know that's not going to be a part of the conversation further for Delta, or is that just still being worked out in terms of?
So I can tell you this in the discussions that we have had with them. Obviously, animal control, as you've heard in media, is it's a realization that it's a necessary service, right? Communities are scared. Humane Society is scared. So we had lengthy discussions about animal control. Delta wants animal control, and let's give it this way. You've got officers now, if we do this contract, if we don't have animal control, sheriff's officers are going to be dealing with animals, right? That's not something they want to do or that they are specialized to do. So we did have the discussions. We put that on hold and did not include anything in the contract right now in these discussions because we've had a lot of outcry and people wanting to do something. We have a request to the state for a building. And remember, the building is our greatest problem, right? It's not, animal control is not really costly the way that we operate it, but the building is huge. So we're trying to do everything we can to pull something together, whether that's working with communities financially, whatever it may be. So to put Delta on the hook for doing something and localizing officers there when we still will have kennel issues didn't make sense for either of us. So it was really to focus on police services at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Barber.
Yeah, I don't know if the sheriff would be the best person to answer this, but we're projecting approximately 40 officers, right, for Delta?
38.
Okay.
And 2 clerical.
So how many and how many backups? How many are we gonna? What we're gonna do with them? Are they gonna be here? So like if a deputy gets wounded up there?
No.
Or they're gonna have to be down to 37?
Correct.
Or he'd
Correct.
be able to shift a deputy that is on courthouse security or something like that to fill that position?
No, that's not what the contract says. That's not what we're going to do because we're not like a pool of officers anymore, right? They're going to be specialized over here, and that is separate. What happens when we have a vacancy and what we've done for years, your officers are covering it via overtime. That's how they do it. That's would continue. If they end up down 5 officers, they're down 5 officers. And to be clear, if they had their own police force, that exists as well. So there shouldn't be any special treatment where somebody comes from the county to assist. This is different than the contract that we currently have.
So then a follow-up would be is if a deputy wants to retire, I know this might be a little off topic, but what's the timeline? You know, like if I decide I want to retire, I'm a road deputy, I want to retire, how much time do they have before they can actually retire and not be on the road in order for us to, or the sheriff, in order to find a new deputy?
So let's be clear, with retirement, just like resignation is 2 weeks, right? I will tell you, and any of them would speak up, they don't wait. I mean, they let the sheriff know that they're looking at retirement. But frankly, for officers, given the difficulty of their jobs, they have a clock that they're working under. They know that they have 5 years left. They're very transparent with the sheriff on that because they obviously know how difficult it is to fill positions, and I think it's more so that right now. So that's not something we have to worry about. Chief Deputy and I talked yesterday about doing something where we have a roster, hiring roster. Kind of impossible these days. Captain Coleman could tell you that. You know, you're trying to grab people, we're putting people in the academy, excuse me. So that's really not viable. But I will say one of the things that we talked about, if we have officers that are leaving or potentially from the county that were on layoff, those officers on layoff, they get called right back, right? And then any officer who loved Eaton County, because they love Eaton County, and had gone somewhere else, and wanted to come back, we have that opportunity. So you can develop a roster in that manner.
And then I was just gonna, and then it's about a year if it's a base recruitment where we have to recruit them, put them through the academy and field training, it's about a year lag time if that's the recruitment method.
But it's still on Delta to feel that, you know, difficulty. It's just the way it is when you have a police force.
There will be field training officers?
Yep.
Yes.
Right? So they'll be part of that contract up there?
So we have one of the things we discussed with the admin fee. We have a training officer. So that training officer is the one that certifies everybody. It's different than a field training officer that's training new deputies. So that is different. They're the ones that do ride-alongs. And so the sheriff will ensure that individuals are trained to be FTOs.
Commissioner Christensen.
So it does say 10-year contract, 3-year opt-out option. Will there be some form of verbiage in that contract that if the budget is not working correctly or something's just not going as you expected it would or they did, that we can revisit that? Or are we just stuck?
No, so at any point, and every year we do this right now, we create a budget, every year we do it. We can talk about the contract at any time. Doesn't mean you have to approve anything, but we can talk about it. So that doesn't restrict it. The 3 years, I was very insistent with this when we talked before we even met with Delta. Right now, we have a 1 year, well, we did, the contract expires in September. We had 1 year out to try to give them time to form their own police force or contract. 1 year, and I think we know more now, and Delta would tell you there's no way they can even do it in a year. I think we've learned a lot, right, through this process. But the 3 year is, to talk from the county standpoint, we want to ensure that we stabilize our finances. So if Delta wanted to pull out of a contract with us, we have 3 years to plan for the things that we're hit with right now, MERS, the 3.6 million. So we're working to stabilize that. 3 years gives us more time to do that. It also gives our officers more time in order to plan for when that happens, and to work with Delta if they want to. And then Delta agreed, basically, that this is the framework that would work for them. So, no, I meant Jim. Did you want to
Do I want
talk about?
the framework? No. Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, thank all of you for being patient, because I know this is, as you know, these talks are going on. It's only natural to want to know what's going on, what are they up to? And thank you for all the, the sheriff's department and the deputies too, because I know that's, you're waiting to hear from us too. So, but going into this, that we had said all along that if this millage fails, that there is no contract with Delta. And that was for the simple fact that we were told that they could not pay the full amount. Okay, that was just the message. Whether they could or not, whether they're, doing their role, that's fine. But that's where we were coming from, and that's how we went into it. And you know that I had discussions with all of you along the way. And so after sitting down and talking about it, we had to, we're in a different place. We're in a different position than we were before. So there is no more revenue coming in. So now we're more like under contracts. We're kind of more of a contract service, department, I guess, if that's the way you want to put it. And if there was a way to bring in revenue and help out the county, then let's look at that. So we shift course, and we took some numbers in and presented, and it took a little bit of getting to that point, but we did. And in the end, I think we came up with a good solution. I believe it's a good solution. Now, does that create problems? Absolutely, because before, we wouldn't have sheriff's department, we wouldn't have cases. If this goes through and you approve of it, and I'll just let you know right now, we got a text from Brian Reed, Delta passed it unanimously. If it passes here and we go forward with this, you know that it creates another issue, because now we're going to have cases back on the table. So, those are something we're going to have to look at, okay? However, this does give us an opportunity, gives the county an opportunity in the future to have the sheriff's department in place. If the economy ever turns around, and we all know that the timing was horrible for this last millage. The economy just was bad. People are hurting. A lot of different factors going on. So if there ever is a time that the economy turns around and people say, hey, we would like it too here in the Out County, it's there. We can build on it. If we don't have the sheriff's department or the road patrol or this contract, it's more than likely there will never ever be another road patrol. So from my perspective, I think that's a plus, but it doesn't come without some challenges. But I think this is the best course forward. And we had good discussions, and that's why I had the discussions with you all probably second week into our discussions about the possibility of having, them pay 100% plus administration fees, because with our lack of staffing, it's costly. It's even though the number's not on paper, it takes a lot of time. So we need to be, compensated for that work. But also, I think the MERS aspect of this really helps out the county big time. And this is what we needed. So, yeah, Commissioner DeRosa.
I want to go back to a question I asked earlier, and that's about, because our employees are contracted to Delta Township, and they are still our county employees, therefore we retain all liability for those counties regardless of what takes place. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Haskell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo kind of the same sentiment that you were given there about being able to restore road patrol to its full extent should the financial situation change in the near future, or maybe not even near future, but Controller Sorby, you mentioned something, I wrote it down here because it kind of struck with me, like about animal control, the realization of losing necessary services, right? And this is a story that I was fortunate enough to be able to share with Commissioner Christensen this past weekend. You know, when I was very young, I grew up actually out in Eagle Township, just across the border, and it was your typical quote-unquote out-county road patrol that you would have out there. And there was one night, we actually had a gentleman who had thrown back a few beers and was sitting in our front yard with a rifle and shooting just constantly all night. And I remember my mom being on the phone and calling and saying, hey, where's the deputy? Who's coming? Who's going to be here? And it was well over an hour before someone actually showed up. And it was at that moment in time that, you know, I think my parents came to the realization that, like, that service was not there 24/7. And now, you know, we're seeing the public talk about animal control and realizing, oh my gosh, if there's, you know, escaped horses or rabid dogs or whatever else, that service isn't going to be there. So I again think it's very important that if we are going to keep some sort of infrastructure available to build off of for when the public realizes the professional services that they are losing, these kind of contracts are important to keep. And I don't know if there's much more discussion, but I am at least ready to make a motion that we authorize the county leadership to pursue a contract with Delta Township following the presented framework.
It's been moved by Commissioner Haskell and supported by Commissioner Pearl-Wright to move forward with leadership with the contract. And so we'll continue discussions. Any other discussions, comments? Anybody else wants to make? Seeing none? Oh, Commissioner Toomey.
I just want to say before we vote that thank you for everybody that's been on the negotiating team and will continue to be on the negotiating team. What we have here is I think it's a good framework to start out with as we continue. It's a good deal, a fair deal, keeps services for folks, and it keeps people employed. So, thank you.
Commissioner Rocha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going back to that 3-year opt-out, if we get into this contract, this agreement, and Delta decides they can't afford this, then at the end of that 3-year opt-out period, what do we do?
Well,
We would just be out.
We would be out, yeah.
We'd be out of the business
So
again.
we would
Yeah.
be moving towards eliminating road patrol, anything that we can't afford in that, because that contract doesn't carry over into the county.
Right.
It's for-
Right, we wouldn't have a
They'd be
choice.
either deciding to transition to their own force or whatever they decide they want to do. So it gives each side the flexibility to make decision based on, kind of a trial period.
And then at the end of this 10-year agreement, if it goes well or not, how much time do we have before it expires to revisit and renegotiate or talk about what our options would be after that 10-year period?
When you say how much time, I mean, it would be just like any other contract. I mean, and I think Delta and administration and county administration know that we are going to make sure we give a lot of thought when we get 7 years or 6 years in. How we doing? How do we feel? Where do we where do we have to go from here? I think we're going to be well prepared to talk with them about extensions. And I think you may see some of that. Remember, we don't have a framework for language yet. We are working on that. But I think that we're ready to make sure that we have that framework to extend the contract. That's the goal. The goal is not to just do it for 10 years. That definitely is
Okay,
not the goal.
that's what I was hoping for, that there would be some way that we could have some kind of extension language in there beyond that 10-year.
Yes,
All right,
yes,
thank you.
definitely.
It would be nice is by year 6 or 7, we should hopefully start seeing the good rewards of going after the MERS unfunded liability. So hopefully that's something everybody can take into consideration at that time. Is when we adopted this renewal, we were at 145% for command officers. What's the rate now, right? So that'll be good to see as time goes on.
All right, thank you.
I just want to thank you, Commissioner Toomey, for bringing up the staff, because this was a pretty tedious process. It took a lot of details, took a lot of time, took a lot of stress. So I want to thank you, Ben, and thank you, Connie, because you did a fantastic job, outstanding. It was very tense at times, but it's negotiations. That's how they go. And so very happy that I think we came to this agreement. I think it works out for both parties and the county. So, should we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Arndt?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Haskell?
Yes.
Commissioner Pearl-Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitaker? Yes. Commissioner Moudry?
Yes.
Commissioner Drosha?
Yes.
Commissioner Toomey?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes? Commissioner Barber? Chairman Mott?
Yes. Passed unanimously. All right. Thank you, everyone. So we're on to the next item, which is the second portion of the limited public comment. Anyone that'd like to address the board? What's it? I'm sorry?
Can I say something before? I can pretend to be the public.
Sure, sure.
Then I can't be the public. I think we all know that. If it's Ben, it's 3 hours. So Ben and I, we were talking before the meeting, and I don't think you've ever been as nervous. Oh, you're going to start crying, huh? Ever been so nervous. This is huge for Eaton County. Damn it. Okay. It's difficult, and I was not going to do this. When we walked around the county, and I'm saying this to the public and the people that are losing the county patrol, we were losing everything because Delta was not going to be able to pay more. We're still losing services for the rest of the county, and that is killing us. And we're working with the sheriff on this staffing model for what it looks like for what's required over here. This contract does cover the costs and then some, like Ben discussed and went through. So I think it's important for the public to understand. We didn't go into this lightly. We were at every meeting saying we were not going to have a contract. The reason that we did that is because the contract staying the same was not possible. We knew that, so we couldn't do it. Until Delta Township worked really hard to look at what options they had. And you realize that you don't realize what you have when you have a sheriff's department, and ours too, especially. It was going to be too tough for them. And obviously they knew tough for us. They knew that it increased what we had to contribute to MERS. They also knew that that impacts, MERS going out for the rest of the county. And it just didn't make sense to not sit down and discuss it. Brian Reed and I have had discussions over the years since he's been the township manager, and going back to their previous finance director, we would have discussions back and forth about the contract. And it was based on settling the contract or if they had vacancies. And we've had these discussions. I can always win because that's just me with Brian. But we worked really hard, and it was difficult, as Chairman Mott said. It was tense. And I want the public to understand that. Eaton County went into this doing what we felt was best for the county's finances. So we are not harming the employees that are still sitting here waiting, wondering if their job's going to be cut. We believe this gives us a foundation to preserve the best that we can, right? Out of this came animal control and those discussions. So it's not just losing services, it's also Delta realizing that animal control, wow, that would hurt them, right? So a lot has come out of these discussions. And I think going forward, we are, as Chairman Mott said, on a better footing for anything that happens. But we're also doing better for the rest of the county, the employees, and the whole goal in both of the ballot proposals was financial stability. This contract is financially stable for both parties. I do want to say that I do appreciate what Delta is also going through. You might think Delta has, this big pocket of money because, they're growing. And they are, which is great. But they also have financial considerations just like we do. Unfunded liabilities, they struggle with the same things. So they're not going to be able to enter into this, which, we're going to make this work, this is great, without knowing that, they have to watch their bottom line going forward. So I appreciate them for looking at this and considering it. And Brian and Courtney Nichols, their finance director, great forecasting, great work on the whole contract. It's just something that I want you to know. This is huge for us and for our officers. And that I know the sheriff wants to say something, and it's important.
Thank you, Connie. Commissioners, I want to thank you very much for this contract. I appreciate it. I want to thank Connie, Ben, and Chairman Mott for pushing this through. Like you said, it was a lot of hours, a lot of hard times, a lot of sleepless nights, especially for me. Whether you know it or not, I still have the best deputies in the state of Michigan. I've lost many, but I still remain very confident with the people I have. They're excellent. I'd have them work on anything. They do a wonderful job. With this contract, it increases enforcement. It's also going to increase case volume. When I say case volume, anything that we do, whether it's taking a complaint, making arrests, doing an investigation to the completion, it's going to be more work for the other part. With the Delta Township contract secured and expanded, our deputies will now be responsible for increased patrol and enforcement in a high-demand area. And trust me, these deputies work. More enforcement means more arrests, citations, investigations, reports, and will directly increase the caseload for the prosecutor's office and the trial courts. Public safety doesn't end with a patrol officer. Every arrest triggers a process. We secured this contract to strengthen public safety, but if the rest of the justice system isn't equipped to keep up, we will shift the crisis from patrol to courtroom. Justice system is a chain, not a silo. If we only staff the front end, meaning the deputies, and cut the back end, which is the prosecution, we create a bottleneck. When considering cuts of reductions, I urge the board to weigh the full cost of expanded police services, increasing police presence while reducing legal and judicial support is not inefficient, but also risk undermining public safety. It's important we need to look at the whole picture. Sometimes we got to look outside the box to find that extra money to make things happen. This county, Eaton County, has always been tough on crime. I remember in the mid-'80s when I was in Tri-County Metro, I got sworn in by Sheriff Art Kelsey. We attempted to do all the drug deals in Eaton County. Why? Because this county was tough, and it remains tough. We got to have a good prosecutor's office, a strong prosecutor's office, and a strong judicial system. So I encourage you, dig deep. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Yeah, Controller Sobey, you had something to say?
Yes, because I love to talk. So I want to express what Sheriff Reich said is very true. We had an executive team meeting that it's difficult because we've all been under the same impression of where things were going to go. I need you to understand that the budget you've looked at thus far only includes nothing in pay increases. It's zero. So I'm saying this to all the employees, that's not our goal, right? That's not our goal. And to the public who think that employees are paid too much, I would love for people to come, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but you need to see what we do. We'll be going into bargaining with 7 unions. Those generally don't result in not having some pay increase, right? So I'm just going to tell the board right now that we need to consider that and make sure that we're looking out for all of the employees who are, one, fortunate enough to stay here with us, and the most important, that we're fortunate enough to keep, because a lot of them will be working harder than they are now, and they're already doing that. So I just want to make sure you know that as we go into the 13th, the Ways and Means Committee, and we give you new updated budget projections, that we still need to consider that is not in it. When we go into June 27th, we've discussed as staff how we're going to manage some type of a set aside for pay increases, because we know that we're going to have to do that. So, is that good?
Ben, I want to give you an opportunity, because I know you're, kind of shy, but I want you, I want you
Well, let me
to,
grab my water bottle now.
Ben was a huge, huge contributor, or a main factor in this negotiations. I mean, you can tell, it's not just about earning a paycheck. They care about this place. And Ben was huge in this, so.
Thank you. I just would say, I know it's been really hard for our sheriff's department employees waiting to see how this plays out. And they've had a lot of people coming and knocking on their door and inviting them to come and move communities and switch communities. And I'm sorry it took so long, but also we had to do it the best way that we could. And but we thank you for those that waited or have been evaluating. And if possible, we would love you to stay. And we know that we have tough paths forward, but you have commitment from the controller's office and a lot of board members to try to put the employees first and do the right thing, even when we're at a place where we have to look at budget cuts. The hopeful outcome is that those budget cuts are less than they've been, so you guys have deliberations that you're gonna have to make. That is probably gonna feel a little topsy-turvy because you haven't seen any figures that include a contract here and a reduction in that long-term liability. But I think you've got some discussions that you're gonna have to go through, because there's going to be more that you have to work through, because you did about 5 million in cuts last week. And if any more have to come or less, you all have opinions about how that's gonna happen. So I would just encourage you to do your homework. And I encourage the employees to know we're trying to get through this the best way possible to protect the ecosystem of Eaton County so that we can continue to serve the good people of this county. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Okay. Anybody else would like to address the board? All right, with that, we are adjourned.